Hello everyone, today I will be presenting Ralph Beelke. Beelke's first memories of creating art go back to when he was 5 years old. He was extremely sick and bedridden with a leakage of a valve in his heart. He was gifted some blocks and had different colors on each side, and each side was divided into two colors diagonally. He would play with his blocks, creating art with the colors for many hours in bed. Ever since then, he noticed that his art had been design related. During his childhood, Beelke was very ill. He could not run around and was limited to physical activities, so he decided to take on creating things. He was greatly influenced by his grandfather, who was a carpenter, and with the tools his grandfather had, Beelke would make birdhouses, boats, and other kinds of things that he could make with the wood and the materials he had at his disposal. He found joy in making these things, and he saw that by using recycled wood, he was still creating art. As a child, Beelke did not paint or draw much. He mostly created things out of wood. He grew up in school that only had two teachers. One teacher taught first grade to fourth grade. The second teacher taught fifth to seventh grade. The school was based on fundamentals. Once they reached seventh grade, the students, including Beelke, would have to take a New York State examination to move on to high school. Students were allowed to skip the eighth grade and go straight into high school which is exactly what Beelke did. When Beelke moved on to public high school, which was much larger, he chose art as his major. During his time in high school, he learned how to draw in perspective and draw objects using various mediums such as charcoal, watercolor, colored pencils, pen, and pencils. He also studied design, and while studying design, he learned about the elements and principles of art. The first time Beelke was aware of art education was during high school. After graduating high school, Beelke attended Albright Art School, and in his first year he was taught to draw using the style of traditional arts. He used charcoal, then learned pattern making with the emphasis on design. In his second year, he took life drawing classes using charcoal again and added more design classes. In his third year, he took portrait classes and learned to create clay portraits of people. In his fourth year, he painted still life and portrait paintings. He also would add extra classes in design because that was where his interests were. Beelke wanted to become a designer of papers and fabrics, but his mother convinced him to take courses that would qualify him to teach. During his night classes at the same university he was attending, which granted him a diploma from the Albright Art School and Bachelor of Education. Once he graduated from art school in 1939, Beelke worked intensively on his design portfolio and started to create wallpapers and textile designs. He moved to New York and would go around looking for companies interested in his designs. He was doing pretty well working for companies and creating textiles. But by January of 1939, the war put him out of freelance design and he fell back into art education. Beelke worked as an art teacher and moved back to central New York. The title given to him was Supervisor of Art. Beelke taught art in high school during the mornings, and in the afternoons he would teach art to elementary school teachers. Almost all the students never had a male teacher, and it was a big challenge for him. But this did not defeat his confidence. Beelke knew what was expected of him as an art teacher and took art drawing classes to train himself as an artist to improve his teachings. While working as an art teacher, around June 1942, Beelke was sent to the army for World War II. He did various things while in the army. One was teaching Americans mathematics. Soon after, Beelke became an education officer after the war in Europe ended. He created a school system for American troops and became the superintendent of schools. He moved from Germany to Paris and later returned to the United States in May 1946. He dealt a great deal with concentration camps, where he decided to become a teacher. When teaching, he loved helping people find their values in life. Soon after that, he decided to become an art teacher. Beelke wanted to learn how to be a good teacher. He started to study books, and that was where he found about progressive education, educational psychology, and schools and society, and the Owatonna Art Education Project, among other things. He knew he had a lot to learn and much reading to do. That was when he decided to attend Teachers College, Columbia University. He took general art education courses, which required him to learn about all art majors. Who influenced Beelke was Edwin Zingfield. Dr. Zingfield was the founder of the International Society for Education through Art. Zingfield was also known to be one of the founders of National Art Education Association. Beelke wanted to be just like him, and while he studied by the side of Dr. Zingfield, he became aware of the differences between education and art education. Dr. Sinfield influenced Beelke's educational philosophy by making art as a part of his everyday life. He believed by doing that there was a physiological way of personal growth. Dr. Sinfield encouraged Beelke to get his doctorate and continue his study, so he followed Dr. Sinfield and became his assistant. Dr. Sinfield modeled his philosophy of art by his way of living before Beelke. Beelke left Teachers College in 1950 and became an instructor in art education at Maryland State Teachers College. He was excited to teach courses that covered the persistent problems in art. As time passed, the older faculty and dean disagreed with the newly implemented teaching methods, so Beelke and many other new teachers resigned. Soon after, Beelke became an educator of the Eastern Arts Association Bulletin, and these publications dealt with issues and concerns of teaching and improvement of teaching. After a few years, he took on the position of specialist education in the arts in the United States Office of Education, and he gathered statistical data on the status of education in the United States and provided leadership by working directly with the state departments of education. He would plan art, music, and other performing arts, helping plan programs and workshops. After working there for 2 years, Beelke was offered to work for the association in the new NEA headquarters as the executive secretary and accepted. Many complications came with this job. Beelke was in charge of writing journals and articles related to the practices of the arts. He wanted to focus on creating newsletters that had news about conventions and conferences. Beelke and his group started to be recognized and began to advertise issues that covered art education topics. Here was where Beelke created his philosophy of education and focused his writings on topics like curriculum development in art education, which emphasized the structures of the Soviet Marxist philosophy in art education. Beelke wrote articles for the National Art Education Association. After working for them for 4 years as a secretary, Beelke returned to teaching art. He then became the head of the Department of Art and Design at Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana in 1962. He was awarded the Art Teacher of the Year from the NAEA, and he was able to reflect on and review all his accomplishments that he had done by the age of 45. After many years devoted to writing journals and fighting for art education and consciousness in 1970s, Beelke decided it was time for him to paint and focus on his own paintings and studio involvement. Although he still cared very much about art education, he valued creating art independently. He devoted so much time to teaching art educators, but Beelke finally realized that art educators must also practice art independently. He believed that art helps refresh teachers' minds and bodies. Beelke continued to paint and write text through the rest of his life and passed away in February 1983 at the age of 66. Beelke left behind a legacy in the NAEA and is considered one of the founders of its ongoing projects. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Have a nice day.